Okay, here we are. It took me a while to get everything all set up. You might have seen me clicking around, getting some things, getting ready. Um, this is the this is the front art that should have been up, and this is what you should have been seeing. But instead of watching me futz around here, but let's get on with it. Um, the world is changing. Finally. Um, I am glad to see that Bill Kristol, Let's Talk Elections, and some others are beginning to get my point. They're not there yet, but they're getting there. They seem to be surprised at some of the results in Louisiana and Texas. I'm not that surprised. Um, Let me go over why. They're going by polls. Okay, they're going by the polls, and they're using that to analyze and to project ahead. I'm using a slightly different approach. I'm looking at how do people think, and what is it that people are going to what's going to make them change their mind. Um, there's a concept in persuasion where a person will not, where it basically states that a person is not going to change their mind about anything if they, uh, until their viewpoint on what they believe is unsettled. Some people put it in an area of cognitive dissonance. Other people put it in a way of idea rebuttal. Um, Basically, I cannot convince you of something. I cannot convince you of position B if you are still totally confident that position A is the right position. So if you become unsettled in A, now you're open to change. But as long as you feel confident and trusting in A, it doesn't matter what anything else is going on, you're not going to switch. You're not going to change your idea. And I think that's a lot of what's been going on with the MAGA group and with the hardline Republicans. They have a very, very firm, fixed view of the world. And as long as that fixed view is not unsettled or brought into question in their mind, it could be in question in your mind, but that doesn't really matter. It has to do with what's in their mind. Now, so therefore so therefore there's this huge population of Republicans and other people that will not change their mind about Trump or about the various programs that he has, about the wall, until they begin to realize that policies of anti-immigration being done by Trump are harming the country, then he might change not his base position that immigration is bad, but his position that Trump is screwing up and doing it wrong. Okay, does that make sense? So, and I think what's going on is that base position is getting eroded. That base idea is getting eroded uh, very strongly, very heavily, and very quickly. And so what's going on is, with the people, with American citizens getting killed, and the Americans, up in Minneapolis, Portland, and other places, um, normal MAGA Americans who don't like the idea of illegal immigration, they get very disturbed by that, and as that goes on, they get more and more disturbed. Again, I don't know if that'll affect their fundamental position about immigration, but that really doesn't matter. If they feel that other things are being done that are horrible, like arresting citizens, killing citizens, now they have a problem because the MAGA people, as I see it, um, if you put it in terms of Dungeons and Dragons, they see themselves as they believe very firmly in the law, um, and so they believe in following the law almost to the letter. No matter how much it hurts people, you follow the law to the letter. And so they don't look beyond that. They don't see if the law is real, if the law is good. Like for instance, the Jews that were killed in the Holocaust in Germany during World War II, that was all done legally. That was done within the laws of the Third Reich. There was no laws being broken when they murdered the 6 million Jews and the 15 million total. Those was all done legally. They don't look past that and ask the question: is the law right? That's beside the point. But anyway, getting back to how I see things moving in the future, I see things. I see a number of things happening in a number of states, which I kind of expected. This is the map. Oh, let me get back to this for a moment. Let me show you the map. There you go. This is the map done by 270 to Win, and it's an interactive map, so you can kind of play with it on your own as to if you think this state's going to go or that state's going to go Republican or Democrat, you can figure it out. So you can play with things. Anyway, so here we have 45 Democrats and 51 Republicans, and there's 4 states that they have as toss-ups. I'm going to go over all these states, and I'm going to show you where I think things are going to land. Georgia, North Carolina, Michigan, and Maine are all going to go Democrat. I think that's really obvious. And Maine is really interesting because I found that what's going on here? Okay, what I couldn't understand about Maine is that Susan Collins was in a poll back in July or June of last year. She had a 14% favorability rate. 14%. Adolf Hitler would have gotten 5. So I'm like, 14% is extraordinarily low. And a person with a 30% favorability rating will have a hard time getting elected. 14%, it's unheard of. I actually put it to AI a couple times. Has anybody ever been elected to the Senate with such a low approval rate? And I said anything under 20%. It said no, it couldn't find one. Then I said, okay, try 30%. Anybody elected to the Senate with a favorability less than 30%? Still couldn't find one. So I felt that Susan Collins is, she's toast. And then with all the other things going on, and Maine is to me that's an obvious pick. That's going to go blue. Now looking back over here, Iowa, Joni Ernst, she dropped out, and I felt that's an easy tell. So I figured that's going to go blue. Don't forget, Iowa voted for Obama. I believe they voted for him twice. So Iowa isn't as rock red Republican as some people seem to think. So I figured that's going to go blue. So we're already up to 50, and we still haven't even got things going yet. I also felt that Ohio is going to go blue. Ohio has always been a kind of a right-leaning, red-leaning purple state. It's not a it never was a rock red Republican state. Why? Because it has too much manufacturing in it, and it has universities and you know a lot of graduates there, so it has a lot of people with graduate and postgraduate degrees, and those people tend to vote blue. So I figured Ohio is blue. Now we're already at 51. Well, if we look at Florida, I have Florida's going blue, and the reason why that is because there was an election in December where the city of Miami went from being always a landslide red mayorship, which is unusual. Almost all the other cities in the country are run by Democrats, not Miami. Miami has always been traditionally blue, traditionally red, and the reason for that is because of the Cuban Americans. But Trump, in his infinite wisdom, has been attacking the Cuban Americans, putting them in detention. And one last summer, a Cuban American, is about 75 years old, was detained. And this is a guy that was in the United States since he was a teenager in 1965, and he died. So the Cuban Americans really pissed about that. You don't treat their esteemed elderly like that. They really don't like. They really had a problem with that, and so they actually took Miami from being a easy Republican win to a Democrat landslide. The Democrat won in Miami by like 65% or something like that, 65%. So it was a huge switch. It was a swing of like 50 points. So I figured, okay, if the Cuban American vote is gone, that by itself makes Florida right there a swing state. It'll be a close election one way or the other. But there's other things that are going on: the loss of tourism, the loss of the Canadian snowbirds, and other things going on there. The tourism economy is crashing. The real estate economy is crashing. So the Republicans have really screwed the pooch in Florida. So I think Ashley Moody, despite everybody saying how she's going to have such an easy cakewalk of a win, I see her as losing. Louisiana, Trump has come out against Cassidy and has endorsed his opponent in the primary. But more importantly, the Louisiana State House they have changed the rules for primaries. It's now a closed primary, not an open primary. And in a closed primary, only the MAGA Republicans can vote. And Cassidy, who appeals more to the independents, he's not going to get elected, or he's not going to win the nomination. Meanwhile, so when the regular election goes around, it's going to be the Democrats and the independents. And the independents are like 25% of the voting stock in Louisiana. So that is not a rock red state. It is a purple state. A number of Republicans and Democrats registered in Louisiana are about equal. So anyway, I have Louisiana going blue. So we're now up to 53. So then I have Texas, and Texas, according to YouGov, Trump has a 70% disapproval rate. So that puts him way down in Texas. Texas disapproval of Trump is only about 4 points or 5 points lower than it is in Minneapolis. For Christ's sake, no. So he's not getting. So the Republicans have already lost Texas. Texas is going to go blue. So now we're at 54. Alaska, that I believe is going to go blue. There's been some interesting polls there. So I think that's going blue. Nebraska, I think that's going blue. If everybody knows that Tyson Chicken has closed a major plant there because of the tariffs. And then the soy farmers there have, they're going out of business because of the tariffs. So there's a lot of people PO'd in Nebraska. Kansas, they've had a number of elections there that actually, swung way to the blue, way to the Democrats. So I see Kansas as going Democrat as well. Now, where do we get more than that? Now, my pick about a month ago was that we would be at 56. I didn't have Nebraska as going Democrat. I have Nebraska going Democrat now. Another one that's interesting is Kentucky. I have Kentucky going blue. YouGov doesn't. YouGov has Kentucky staying red. By that I mean they have it staying red because they show Kentucky as still having Trump with a small net approval rating. So if that holds, which I doubt it will, but if that holds, that would put Kentucky still in the red column. I have it as blue. Well, the one that surprised me is YouGov. The YouGov poll had Mississippi as being net disapproval for Trump, which means that is a very possibility. And if we put that in there, then that gives us to 59. But beyond that, we have a number of states, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee, and South Carolina, where Trump has a net approval rating, but it's very, very thin. It's less than 5%. And one of them, I forget which one, it's like less than 1%. I mean, Trump is barely eking out a net positive approval. So there's a number of these that are could actually still move quite easily into the blue column if Trump doesn't change his tune. And one thing we can almost rely on is that, let me just change this here. Okay, there we go. One thing we can almost rely on is that Trump is not going to change his tune. Most politicians, when they see negative results, they will then course correct. They will then, instead of doing this, they will now do that. They will now speak instead of fully supportive terms. They'll now hedge their rhetoric. Trump doesn't do any of that. Like for instance, ICE is in Minneapolis. ICE does one of their raids, or and they grab somebody, pull her over, and they shoot her. They kill her. Okay. Now, when that happens, normally in the past, because things happen, when you have the law enforcement with guns and things happen, people get killed sometimes, and that does happen on a regular basis in our country. But it's not usually real news, because what happens? Officer Jones gets somebody. He's trying to arrest somebody or just question him or do something, and there's an exchange, and something happens, and he shoots him. And it was a wrongful shooting, let's say. What happens normally? Normally, what will happen? The chief of police, the mayor, the other political, they'll almost always back off. They'll say, "Oh, he was, he didn't follow department policy. He didn't follow his training." They put it all on that guy. That officer is likely going to get thrown under the bus. He's not going to get support from the administration. Why? Because politicians know when to fish and when to cut bait. And they know when something like that happens, the best thing to do is to just dump that guy. Now, that is what Trump should have done with that guy, Jonathan Ross, in Minneapolis. Should just simply just denied that's policy, that the guy overstepped. He made ICE doesn't do that. We don't support that kind of behavior. And if he had done that, his followers would have probably stayed following him, because they're prone to believe him. A lot of other people, like me, I wouldn't believe him. But that's neither here nor there. He didn't do that. He didn't back away. He didn't do that. What he did is he threw the victim under the bus. He says, "Oh, the victim was a terrorist. The victim was trying to kill him. He put Jonathan Ross in the hospital," which of course he wasn't. And he puts lie after lie on top of that, and it just, and people as they watch the video, because they can see the video, it's not hearsay, they can actually see it. Um, Anybody looking at that says, she was killed, she was murdered. There's no other way to look at that but that way. It's the video is not at all um, ambiguous on that, and so Trump is losing support among those who actually want to believe in him because of his rhetoric, because of what he's doing, and if he would change his direction, and he might be able to reverse that, maybe be able to stop that. But if you've been watching Trump at all for the past 10, 15 years, Trump does not have a history of changing course. He has a history of doubling down, like he did with Jonathan Ross, where he said that Ms. Good was a terrorist. And then, because then when Mr. Petty was killed, he did the same thing. He doesn't learn that what he's doing is not really working, and he just doubles down. He keeps on doing that. So I'm assuming that that's going to happen. That's going to keep on keeping on with that until November. And if that's the case, then that means that his popularity is as low as it is now. It's going to get lower and lower and lower and lower. I can't go any lower. Sorry. So anyway, so that's why I see this. I see him going down even farther. Now, if that happens, let's assume that happens. That means Montana, Arkansas, Tennessee, South Carolina, and Oklahoma. Oh, and South Dakota. Could all end up going Democrat. I'm not predicting that, by the way. Just saying it's possible. It is conceivable, especially with Trump not backing down, not trying to correct course in any way. By the way, Idaho and West Virginia, Trump is still very, very popular. Up in the 20s. I think Idaho is in the 30%, positive 30% range. So he's extremely popular in Idaho, which is insane. But there you go. But still, that would if the Democrats got over 60 senators in the new Senate, that would actually break a record. The record, as far as I know right now, is let me bring myself back. The record, as far as I know now, is 1932, when the Great Depression hit, stock market crash, the Smoot-Hawley tariffs, and established in 1930. That lengthened and deepened the Great Depression, is similar to Trump's policies now of high tariffs. But anyway, in 1932, 12 seats changed from Republican to Democrat. Democrats had 12 more senators in 32 than they had in 31. That, I believe, is the record. And I think we're going to hit that record. If we hit that record, then we'll be at 59. If we fall short of it, then we might be at 56, 57, 58. But we also can go. There's a possibility we're going to go beyond that by several seats. So we could end up with 61, 62, 63. And like I said, if the Democrats run the table and get every state that they could possibly get, then we'd be at 65 Democrats in Congress. And that'd be insane. Now, what does this mean? Getting a huge number of Democrats in the Senate. And by the way, and also if we get, I also am expecting we're going to end up with 300 Democrats, give or take, in the House. So we're talking. So if that happens, we're not just really talking more Democrats, because the Democrats coming in today are of a different generation and of a different mindset than the Chuck Schumers and the Dick Durbins of the old guard. Even Hakeem Jeffries will be too soft for the new ones coming in, for the new Democrats coming in. The new Democrats coming in, they will have seen their neighbors brutalized by ICE. They'll have seen some of their constituents possibly even killed by ICE, detained by ICE, maybe even put out of the country by ICE. They're going to be seeing this. They're going to have it. They're going to have these experiences very viscerally in their mind and their body. They are not going to be of the Chuck Schumer, Dick Durbin types, where let's reach across the aisle and make agreement. You know, I mean, like with Chuck Schumer and the rest of the Democratic leadership, how many times do you have to be kicked in the nuts to realize that they're still going to do it again? They do not. There's no way to make an agreement with a Republican. Republicans do not honor their agreements. They have no honor. They have no honesty, dignity, or integrity about them. They just don't have it. That's not part of their character. They have shown that over and over and over again. And that's what gets Democrats so PO'd at the Democratic leadership, because how many times, like with Lucy and Charlie Brown, how many times do the Republicans have to pull the football away before you realize they're never going to honor an agreement? Never, not once. And so stop compromising with them, because a compromise with them just means you give up something and they give up nothing. I mean, that's beyond stupidity. That goes into insanity. Insanity where you keep on doing the same thing, expecting a different result. Well, if you keep caving to the Republicans, they're just going to piss on you every time, because they don't respect you at all. And Chuck Schumer is a joke. He's a wimp. You can kick him in the nuts over and over and over again, and he'll come back for more. Go figure. But anyway, this is going to have a huge impact in November. The government that you see now, you will not recognize the American government 12 months from now, because you're going to have Democrats controlling both houses by a lot, not by just a few seats. And they're going to be PO'd, and they're going to want to take our government back. And then you're going to start seeing, I hope to see all of the members of ICE that are doing this crap. I like to see them all being investigated, and every time they broke a law, I like to have that law enforced, and have them not just merely fired, not just merely losing their pension. I would like to see them in jail, and not slap on your wrist jail terms like 6 months and then probation. No, I want to see them in jail. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and for the ones that brutalized people, 10, 20 years. Make examples of them. Show that people they cannot defy the Constitution and break their oath to the Constitution without suffering severe consequences. And I would hope that the new Democrats coming in will see it similarly. I hope so. I don't know. The Democrats do scare me. They have this great habit of taking taking defeat from the jaws of victory, and from playing too nice. You can't play nice with the devil. Anyway, that's where I see things going. Now, one more thing. So I am predicting a blue wave. Okay, and like I said, Bill Kristol and Let's Talk Elections. If you look at what they're saying now, they're beginning to get the idea that the Democrats could take the Senate. Whoa! So they're beginning to think that 51, 52 seats is a very real thing. They don't. They still don't see the wave yet. Um, but it's more than that. Because in order for that wave to happen the way it seems to be happening, because we were having elections in very red areas, either going blue or or so. Even though the Republicans win, like Tennessee, 7th Tennessee, where the Republican won, but by a margin, 15 points less than they normally win by. So all of a sudden, a normally deep red district becomes a purple district. And you can see that happening around the country. So when you look at all the elections across the country that have swung to the Democrats, even though they're in very red areas like Kansas, Florida, Texas, I think that we're going to be having a realignment. The Republicans that have felt the need to switch, they're not switching because of a single issue. It's not like there's one issue that all of a sudden they're going to vote Democrat because of this one issue that they really like, that Democrats support. No, it's not, because this isn't a one issue election. There's so many things happening. And you could kind of summarize it as being as like our democracy being under assault, things like that. But there's so many things: the economy, Medicare, SNAP, and those kind of humanistic benefits. There's so much that has been brought under attack. USAID has been totally destroyed, canceled. FEMA gutted, and I think it's still there, but it's basically non-functional. There's just so many things. I don't think there's one thing you could hang your hat on and say this election is about this. It's about the economy. Well, yeah, the economy is pretty bad, and Trump is not making it any worse. He's not making it any better. He's making it much worse. But there's a lot more than that. There's the ICE raids and the diminution of our constitutional rights. Like this attack on the Second Amendment. Like, if that's not going to get the MAGA voter voting Democrat, I don't know what will. So yeah, that which I think I'm smiling because I think that was so funny. I think it was so hilarious when Trump and his gang started attacking Preddy because he had a gun. It's like, oh crap, that's not going to go over well with MAGA, and it didn't. Whether or not that'll go away and whether or not that's going to be a decisive factor in the election in November, I don't know. It doesn't matter. There's so many other things at play here. That's just one moving wheel. There's so many others that are some of the moving wheels in this election. It's going to be quite amazing, speaking academically, but as a citizen, we need to take our government back. We need to take our government back. We need to reestablish the Constitution as the foundation and basis for our government and our society. Well, anyway, with that, I'm going to let you go. I appreciate you stopping in. I'm going to have more on this at least once a week, if not a lot more. So I'll talk to you later.